unforgiving mountains along the Arizona-Mexico border, a desperate German shepherd named Valor appears at the doorstep of retired Marine sniper Jack Patterson, and nothing in his life will ever be the same. The dog isn't just injured, he's pleading, and when Jack decides to follow him, what he uncovers is chilling: a secret K9 training facility destroyed in a brutal, calculated assault. It wasn't random. It was a black ops mission gone dark, one designed to intercept human trafficking routes. And now, Captain Nicole Lawson, Valor's handler, has been taken by the infamous Maduro cartel. What starts as a rescue turns into a relentless race against time as Jack and Valor cross into cartel territory to find Nicole. But the deeper they go, the darker it gets, because Nicole isn't the only one being held. Hidden inside the cartel stronghold are dozens of innocent children being smuggled across the border, and no one is coming to save them. No one, except a lone Marine, a kidnapped officer, and a dog who refuses to give up. Together, they'll take on impossible odds, expose a cross-border conspiracy, and remind the world that even in the darkest places, loyalty and courage can still shine through. This is the story of three unlikely heroes: one man, one woman, and one extraordinary dog, who became the last hope for children who had none. Before we jump in, let us know where you're watching from. And if this story hits you in the heart, hit subscribe, because tomorrow we're dropping something even more powerful. The sun was sinking low over the Sonoran Desert, casting the mountains in hues of fire and shadow. Former Marine Scout sniper Jack Patterson stood on the porch of his remote cabin, far from people, far from noise, exactly how he liked it. At 52, after decades of service, he'd carved out a quiet life in these hills. Solitude was no longer punishment. It was peace. But that peace shattered with one unexpected sound: barking. Jack's instincts kicked in. No one should be out here. He grabbed his sidearm, the same one he'd carried since Afghanistan, and crept toward the noise with the quiet, precise steps of a man trained to disappear into the terrain. What he found wasn't a threat, but a mystery. A German shepherd, panting, limping, wearing a tactical vest marked "Search and Rescue." The dog froze when it saw Jack, then barked again, urgent, pleading. "Where's your handler?" Jack asked, eyeing the dried blood on the shepherd's side. Not the dog's, someone else's. The dog barked once, turned, and looked back toward the trail, then again at Jack. Clear eyes, desperate, intelligent, asking for help. Jack hesitated, then nodded. "You want me to follow you?" The dog barked again. Most people would call it crazy, chasing a wounded dog into the wilderness. But Jack wasn't most people. Something about Valor's posture, the military precision in his movements, the loyalty in his eyes, it stirred something deep in Jack's chest. He grabbed his go bag, double-checked his ammo, stuffed in a first aid kit, and gave the dog a nod. "All right, lead the way, but this better not be a wild goose chase." What followed wasn't a chase, it was a mission. The shepherd led him fast, but not reckless, trained, always checking that Jack was still behind. The trail they followed soon showed signs of something sinister. Fresh tire tracks on roads that hadn't seen traffic in years, branches broken by heavy vehicles, and most chilling, a recently fired 5.56 shell casing lying in the dirt. Military grade, not hunters, not border patrol, something else, something darker. 2 hours in, they reached a ridge. Jack dropped flat, pulled out his binoculars, and scanned the valley below. What he saw made his blood go cold. A K9 training compound, leveled, still smoldering, buildings ripped apart with tactical precision, guard posts targeted first, communications disabled. This wasn't a cartel war, this was an op, silent, surgical, and deadly. At the entrance, scorched but still standing, a charred wooden sign: Second Chance K9 Rescue and Rehabilitation. Jack turned to the shepherd. "That was your home, wasn't it, boy?" The dog whined, pawing at the ground. "And I'm guessing you're the only one who made it out." The facility had been leveled early in the attack. Whoever did this wasn't just dangerous, they were trained, military trained, or taught by someone who was. "Let's get a closer look," Jack whispered to the dog, "but we do this my way, slow and careful." Moving like a ghost through the valley, Jack advanced from cover to cover. Valor followed with the same discipline Jack had seen in elite units. No hesitation, no fear, just purpose. As they approached the main building, Jack saw no signs of movement, no cameras, no tripwires, nothing. Either the attackers were arrogant enough to think no one would come, or they planned on coming back. "Stay close," Jack murmured. Valor kept tight to his heel as they slipped through the blown-out entry. Inside it was chaos. Furniture overturned, papers scattered, equipment smashed beyond use. But it was the wall of photographs that made Jack freeze. Dozens of dogs, each beside their handler, many of them in uniform. This wasn't just a dog training center. It was a reintegration program. One for retiring military K-9S, retrained for civilian search and rescue. One photo caught his eye, a proud German shepherd standing beside a woman in fatigues. The caption, "Captain Nicole Lawson and Valor Afghanistan 2023. Jack looked down at the dog. "So, you're Valor." Valor gave a soft whine, nudging the photo with his nose. "And your handler is Captain Lawson," Jack muttered. They pressed deeper into the building. In what used to be an office, Jack found something odd, a door hidden behind a bookshelf. Sloppy work, though. The attackers had found it and forced it open. Behind it, a fully equipped comms room, or what was left of it. Military-grade tech, now burned and battered, way too advanced for a dog rehab center. Among the debris, Jack spotted a partially scorched file, the heading Operation Guardian. The contents, mentions of cartel trafficking routes, Maduro cartel. Jack exhaled sharply. This wasn't just a rescue center, this was an intel hub. Suddenly, Valor tensed, a low growl in his throat. Jack froze. Then he heard it too. Engines. Multiple. Getting closer. "Someone's coming back," Jack whispered. "We need to move." They slipped out and took cover on a nearby hillside, vanishing into the rocks just as 3 black SUVs rolled into the ruins. Men in tactical gear stepped out, moving with the kind of precision Jack had only seen in special forces. Not just cartel muscle. These guys were trained. They spoke Spanish, but Jack, fluent after years of ops in South America, understood every word. "Check everything again," one ordered. "The boss wants all the evidence gone." "What about the woman?" another asked. "She'll talk. They all talk eventually." Jack clenched his jaw. They had Captain Lawson, and she was still alive. Beside him, Valor didn't make a sound, but his eyes were locked on the scene with a soldier's intensity. Once the SUVs drove off, heading south toward the border, Jack stayed still for another 30 minutes, scanning for stragglers. "They're headed to Mexico," he finally said, "and that's where they're keeping her." Jack had a choice. The logical one was to call it in. But to who? If this was a black operation, local cops might blow the whole thing, or worse, be compromised. He needed someone he could trust. In the wreckage, under a loose floorboard, he found what he didn't expect to survive, a satellite phone sealed in a waterproof case. He dialed a number he hadn't touched in 5 years. 3 rings. A voice answered. Gruff, suspicious. "Henderson!" "Greg, it's Patterson." A pause. "Jesus, Jack, I thought you disappeared for good. I need a favor, off the books." Greg Henderson had been Jack's intel contact in the final years of service. They'd pulled each other out of enough fires to know when something was real. "You in trouble?" "I've got coordinates, a place called Second Chance K9. I need you to dig into it, quietly." Greg sighed. "This going to get me fired?" "No promises," Jack said flatly. While Greg worked the intel, Jack scoured the compound. In the kennels, he found the names Rex, Sierra, Duke, Athena, Valor. All the kennels were empty, except for Valor's. Signs of a struggle, blood, a broken latch. "You fought your way out, didn't you?" Jack said, shaking his head in admiration. "While they took your handler." Valor sat beside him, alert and still, like he understood every word. The sat phone buzzed. Greg's voice was tight now, no more jokes. "Jack, what the hell have you walked into? That bad? Second Chance is a non-profit, on paper, but they've got Pentagon money flowing in ways that don't line up. Looks like a cover. For what? Captain Nicole Lawson, the woman in charge. She's ex-Army intel, decorated. She cracked a Taliban smuggling ring in 23. Her specialty? Dogs trained to find people. Not just bombs, people. Trafficking victims. Jack looked at Valor. You really picked a partner with enemies. Greg continued, voice lower. 3 days ago, Border Patrol found a tunnel big enough to run dozens through at once. Next day, Second Chance gets hit. That's no coincidence. Jack nodded. It's bigger than anything local. You've stumbled into something deep, Greg warned. Be careful. One more thing, Jack said. Can you pull satellite images from the last 72 hours? Give me an hour. Jack ended the call and looked at the shepherd curled beside him. Your handler must be one hell of a woman, he murmured. Valor let out a soft whimper, resting his head on Jack's knee, as if he already knew. Night had fallen over the desert, and with it came a cold that cut straight to the bone, a stark contrast to the scorching heat of the day. Jack made a small, concealed camp in the hills above the ruined compound. As he shared his rations with Valor, something unspoken passed between them, an understanding. Both of them were veterans, both shaped by war, both loyal beyond reason. We're going to find her, Jack said softly, breaking the silence. Whatever it takes. In the distance, coyotes howled under a rising moon. Valor's ears perked, but he didn't move. His focus was locked in, eyes forward, mind on the mission. Jack knew that look well. It was the mark of a soldier. The satellite phone buzzed. Jack grabbed it. Got your satellite imagery, Greg said without preamble. 3 SUVs left the facility at 10:17 p.m. 3 nights ago, headed southeast. Crossed into Mexico near Nogales. Attack started at 3:12 a.m., 12 men, tactical entry, coordinated. They knew exactly what they were doing. Any signs someone was taken? Jack asked. One heat signature, female, loaded into a vehicle. Then they all moved south. Different border crossing. Jack looked at Valor. They've got her. There was a pause on the other end. Jack, whatever you're thinking, stop. This isn't your fight. It is now. At least wait for backup. I can get some people. No time, Jack cut him off. But there is something you can do. He described the men he'd seen, their gear, their movement, their discipline. Not cartel street soldiers, professionals, former military. I'll look into it, Greg said with a sigh. But Jack, don't go to Mexico. Even you're not that good. I'm not going alone this time, Jack said, eyes on Valor. Then he ended the call. He packed his gear, checked his weapon, reviewed maps of the border, the peace he'd built for himself over the last few years. It was over. But in its place came something familiar, the clarity of purpose, the sharpness that only came with a mission. You ready to get your handler back, boy? He asked. Valor barked once, short and sure. Jack knew the risks. Crossing into Mexico could mean never coming back. But some fights find you, even when you've tried to leave the war behind. This story took time and heart to tell. If it's resonating with you, do us a favor, subscribe to the channel. It means more than you know. Now back to it. The border between the United States and Mexico stretches nearly 2,000 miles, much of it wild, harsh, and easy to vanish into. Jack knew these lands well. He'd worked them before, years ago, tracking smugglers, intercepting cartel runners. But this time was different. At dawn, he and Valor completed their final checks. Jack had spent the night salvaging what he could from the ruins, medical kits, comms gear, ammo. He found a tactical vest for himself, matching Valor's, but he removed the search and rescue patches. Where they were going, blending in was survival. We crossed through the old smuggler's trail by Diablo Canyon, Jack explained aloud, knowing Valor would still understand. It's too rough for trucks, means less patrols, less sensors. Valor tilted his head, listening. The hard part, Jack added, isn't getting in, it's getting back out. The sat phone chirped again. I've got something, Greg said. Recognized one of the men you described. ex-Mexican Special Forces, Grupo de Operaciones Especiales. Now he works for Hector Medina. Jack's jaw tightened. Medina? The Harvard guy? Yeah, Hector Medina, head of the Maduro cartel. Not the biggest, but by far the smartest. He runs his outfit like a corporation. Diversified, efficient, high-tech. And recently, Greg hesitated, they've moved into human trafficking, heavy focus on children. Jack's voice dropped. And Lawson? Most likely being held in Santa Elena, about 20 miles across the border. Medina's got a compound there. Big, fortified, professional security system, 20 armed men minimum. He's paranoid, always expects an attack. Jack took it in silently, adjusting his strategy in real time. Why hit second chance? He asked. They were building something new, Greg explained. Training dogs to detect more than just drugs or explosives. They were training them to find children, hidden in cargo, in tunnels, in the dark. Lawson's team uncovered 3 trafficking tunnels last month alone. They got too close. They shut it down to protect the operation. Exactly. And there's more. We have reason to believe someone on our side is helping cover it up. Federal protection. Could be why no one's talking. Jack muttered a curse under his breath. They're burying it. I've contacted a few people I trust, but it'll take time. Meanwhile, if Captain Lawson's alive, every hour counts. Jack didn't hesitate. At first light, he and Valor moved out, light and fast, staying low, using the terrain. By noon, they reached the border. Here, it was little more than sun-bleached wooden posts half swallowed by the sand. Welcome to Mexico, Jack muttered. Valor didn't seem impressed. They waited out the afternoon heat in the shade of a rocky cliff. Then, as the sun began to dip, they pressed on. The terrain began to change, still desert, still dry. But the light shifted, the shadows longer, the colors sharper. As they crested a ridge, they saw it, the town of Santa Elena, tucked in the folds of the landscape. From a distance, it looked ordinary. Whitewashed walls, a plaza, a bell tower rising above the rooftops. But Jack knew better. The enemy was down there, and so was Captain Lawson. Jack saw what most people wouldn't. New vehicles in a poor town, armed men standing just out of sight, locals avoiding eye contact like it was survival. This town belongs to the cartel, he muttered, body and soul. Through his binoculars, Jack located Medina's hacienda on the eastern edge of Santa Elena, a sprawling walled compound with 6 guards visible from where he was watching. But he knew there'd be more inside. We need to find exactly where they're keeping her, he told Valor, without alerting the entire cartel. From his pack, Jack pulled out a small container. Inside was a piece of clothing he'd taken from Captain Lawson's room. Valor sniffed it carefully, then gave a soft woof. Confirmation. Jack changed clothes, trading his tactical gear for worn jeans, a faded shirt, and a straw hat pulled low. He swapped Valor's vest for a plain collar. Just a local and his dog out for an evening walk, he murmured. Nothing suspicious here. They entered Santa Elena from the west. Jack adjusted his posture, slower, stooped, shedding every trace of military sharpness. Still, every nerve in his body was on edge. Eyes watched them from behind curtains. Conversations fell silent as they passed. For over an hour they walked, blending in. Valor kept his nose low, searching. But just as doubt started creeping into Jack's mind, the dog froze, nose in the air, focused. He turned down a side street, straight toward Medina's compound. Good boy, Jack whispered. Now let's get a better look. They slipped into an abandoned building across from the compound's main gate. From the upper floor, Jack used his binoculars to study the setup. This wasn't just cartel muscle, it was a fortress. Cameras, motion sensors, professional guard rotations. But there was a pattern. Deliveries came in regularly. Food, liquor, supplies. The guards checked every vehicle, but the routine was so repetitive it had started to dull their awareness. That was a weakness Jack could use. He spent the next hour gathering intel, delivery times, guard paths, blind spots in the system. Every detail mattered now. Later that night, They ducked into a quiet cantina on the edge of town. Jack sat alone, listening. Two cartel soldiers at the bar were talking. "The boss is keeping the place locked down till the American woman talks." "She's tough," the other replied. 3 days and nothing. "Medina gets here tomorrow. He'll make her talk." Time was running out. If Hector Medina arrived, the place would become impenetrable. "It has to be tonight," Jack told Valor as they slipped back into the shadows. Tonight, or not at all. At midnight, Jack and Valor moved into position near the hacienda's service entrance. A delivery truck rolled up. The guards focused on their inspection. Using the moment, Jack moved, spraying over a security camera lens and picking a side door lock in seconds. They were in. Moving like shadows, Jack and Valor made their way through the compound. Valor led, nose down, tracking the scent of his handler through the maze-like halls. They went deeper, into the lower levels. Eventually, they reached a heavy steel door, guarded by 2 men with rifles. Jack signaled Valor to stay. What followed was fast, silent, precise. Both guards dropped before they ever saw him coming. "Good job staying put," he whispered as Valor rejoined him. Jack opened the door with a heavy click, gun raised. Inside was a dim room that had been turned into a prison. On a cot, bound hand and foot, her face bruised but her eyes burning with defiance, was Captain Nicole Lawson. "Who the hell are you?" she rasped, voice hoarse but unbroken. Before Jack could answer, Valor pushed past him, whining softly. "Valor?" Nicole whispered, her voice cracking as tears welled up. "How?" "Name's Jack Patterson," he said as he cut her restraints. "I'm the rescue party." Nicole flexed her stiff arms. "I can walk." But as they turned to leave, Nicole grabbed his arm. "Wait, we can't go yet." Jack froze. "What do you mean?" "There are children here," she said, her voice steady. "They're moving them tonight." Jack glanced at his watch. 1:15 a.m. "Getting you out was hard enough," he said. "Going after kids." "I'm not leaving without them," she said, fire in her eyes. Jack looked between her and Valor. The risks had just multiplied, but so had the stakes. "All right," he said at last. "But we do it my way. If anything goes wrong, you and Valor get out, no matter what." Nicole held his gaze. "Deal." "Where are they?" "East Wing," she said. "I overheard them. A shipment of special merchandise. It's set to move before sunrise." Jack handed her a pistol. "How's your aim?" She checked it without flinching. "Expert qualification." 3 years running. Jack allowed himself the smallest of smiles. "Good, we'll need it." They moved quickly but carefully, keeping to the shadows. When they neared the East Wing, Valor suddenly growled, low and sharp. "Someone's coming," Jack whispered. They ducked low in the shadows as 2 guards passed, speaking in Spanish about the merchandise being moved soon. Their tone was casual, like it was just another routine shipment. But the moment they were gone, Jack and Nicole moved again, swift and silent, until they reached a heavy door. From the other side they could hear it. Soft crying. Jack peered through a narrow glass panel. "I count 12, just like you said," he whispered. 3 guards. But what they didn't expect was the arrival of a 4th, Hector Medina, himself, a day earlier than anyone predicted. "Change of plan," Jack said under his breath. "I'll take Medina. You and Valor handle the guards." In a coordinated blur of motion, they burst through the door. Jack's weapon was already trained on Medina. Nicole dropped 1 guard with silent shots. Valor took down another with bone-crushing force. The 3rd barely had time to react before Jack took him out, and still, Medina didn't flinch. "You have no idea what you're interfering with," he said in perfect English. "Shut up and get on your knees," Jack replied coldly. Nicole immediately went to the children, speaking softly in Spanish, telling them they were safe now. At first, they were too terrified to respond. But then Valor approached, his body language softening. The fierce soldier dog turned into a calm guardian. He didn't bark, he didn't lunge, he simply sat among them, and somehow they knew they were safe. "What now?" Nicole asked, her voice tight. We've got 10 minutes max before someone notices those guards are missing, Jack said. We need transport. He searched Medina's pockets and found keys, then, with zero ceremony, knocked the cartel boss unconscious. Sometimes the direct approach works best. They raced through the compound undetected, heading for the garage. Inside were 3 black SUVs, same models Jack had seen back at the Second Chance facility. Everyone in, Jack ordered. But just as he started the engine, alarms exploded through the compound. They found Medina, Nicole said grimly. Jack slammed his foot on the gas. The SUV roared forward, crashing through the garage doors, tearing across the courtyard toward the main gate, which was already starting to close. He didn't slow down. The SUV barely squeezed through, scraping paint off both sides as it burst into the streets of Santa Elena, the lives of 12 children hanging in the balance. Chaos erupted behind them. Gunfire, shouting, engines. Vehicles gave chase. They're closing the main road, Nicole warned from the back, shielding the kids. We're not taking the main road, Jack growled, veering off down a narrow alley. We need another way. Nicole spotted it first. There, the dry riverbed. It runs west, toward the border. Jack didn't hesitate. He made another sharp turn, the SUV bouncing violently as they hit the rocky terrain. The riverbed was unforgiving, but it gave them space. 2 pursuit vehicles managed to follow. We've got company, Nicole called, watching through the back window. Jack pushed the SUV to its limit, dodging boulders and drop-offs. Behind them, headlights bounced erratically through the dust. The kids huddled together, terrified, pale faces lit by the moon. There's a box under your seat, Jack said. Check it. Nicole reached down and pulled out a metal case. Inside, grenades, military-grade, real ones. Your arm any good? Jack asked. Nicole gave a faint grin. All-state softball pitcher, senior year. When I say now, drop one, 10-second fuse. He waited, swerving around a bend in the riverbed, momentarily out of sight. Now! Nicole leaned out, lobbed the grenade, and ducked back inside. 10 seconds later, boom! The blast echoed across the desert. One of the chase vehicles went up in flames, debris raining down behind them. One down, Jack said, eyes never leaving the path ahead, but the second vehicle was closing in. Bullets cracked through the air, one punched through the rear window. The kid screamed. Valor leapt over the seats, positioning himself between the children and the bullets, body tense, ready to take anything that came. We can't outrun them, Nicole said, her voice firm. Jack spotted a narrow canyon off to the right, almost invisible in the moonlight. Without warning, he killed the lights and veered sharply, plunging into the darkness. What are you doing? Nicole hissed, bracing herself. Creating an opportunity. He drove about 50 yards into the canyon, then cut the engine. Everyone stay down, stay quiet. Jack moved to the canyon's mouth and waited, crouched in the shadows. The cartel vehicle slowed, confused, scanning, then passed directly below him. That's when Jack dropped the last grenade. The explosion lit the canyon like daylight. Flames, shrapnel, silence. Jack sprinted back to the SUV. That bought us time, but more will come. He restarted the engine, lights still off, navigating only by moonlight. The canyon rejoined the riverbed several miles downstream. How far to the border? Nicole asked, holding a sleeping child against her shoulder. 15 miles, Jack said, but we can't hit a checkpoint. They've already alerted everyone, corrupt or clean. There's an old smuggling route, Nicole replied, near Diablo Canyon. If we make it by dawn, we've got a shot. Jack nodded, pushing the SUV across the rocky ground. No headlights, just instinct and grit. In the back, the kids had gone quiet, some asleep, others staring, hollow and broken. But Valor moved between them one by one, nuzzling a hand, laying beside the most frightened, offering something words never could. Jack glanced at him. He's something special. Nicole smiled softly. Best partner I've ever had. He was out on a training run with me when they ambushed us, Nicole explained. They hit me with a tranquilizer, but he got away. Jack nodded, and then found me. Of all the people in those mountains, he tracked down an ex-Marine sniper. That's no accident. Not at all, Nicole said. He was trained to seek out military personnel in emergencies. Something about how you move, how you carry yourself, he can sense it. As the first light of dawn painted Diablo Canyon in hues of gold and rose, Jack slowed the SUV, scanning the terrain for threats. "There," he said, pointing to a barely visible trail winding through rocky cliffs. "That's our crossing." The path was narrow, with steep drops on both sides. Jack drove with precision, every muscle taut with alertness. "What happens after we cross?" Nicole asked. "These kids need care, protection." "I've got a contact," Jack replied. "Greg Henderson. He's been working on the legal side of this. He'll have support waiting." They passed an old, weather-worn post marking the border. It offered no comfort, but it meant they were back on American soil. 2 miles in, their escape hit another obstacle, flashing lights ahead. A border checkpoint. Jack's jaw tightened. This could go bad. Nicole reached for her weapon. Cartel or real border patrol? Doesn't matter. We're in a stolen cartel SUV with a dozen undocumented kids. Jack grabbed the satellite phone. "Please tell me those are your people at the Diablo Canyon exit." Greg's voice answered, relieved. "They are. That's Agent Gomez. You're good." Moments later, one of the agents lowered his rifle and waved them forward. As they passed through the checkpoint, Agent Gomez approached. "Mr. Patterson, we've been expecting you. Medical teams are ready and a secure site is standing by." Nicole eyed him. "How do we know we can trust you?" "I was at your Quantico lecture on trafficking detection. We've been searching for you since the attack." The children were transferred to medical staff. Some were frightened, some silent, but all safe. "What about Medina?" Gomez asked. "He's alive," Jack replied, "but exposed. He knows we have children who can identify him and his backers." Nicole pressed. "Including the ones who shut down the Second Chance investigation?" "We're working on it," Gomez said. "Henderson's got Justice Department ears now. Evidence is being collected." Valor returned to Nicole's side. Gomez looked at the group, exhausted, battered. "You all need rest. There's a safe house nearby, secure and off-grid." Jack nodded, suddenly aware of how drained he felt. As they drove to the location, he couldn't shake one thought. This wasn't over. Medina would come back harder, and soon. Nicole acted fast. She armed a flashbang and wedged it into the aircraft's landing gear. As the jet started to move, the device exploded, disabling the gear and forcing the plane to halt. Trapped on board were Medina and several corrupt U.S. officials. Mexican special forces quickly surrounded the jet, spotlighted by a Black Hawk above. After a short standoff, the officials surrendered. Jack radioed in, all high-value targets secured. Colonel Westfield, despite their unofficial involvement, approved Jack and Nicole's actions, recognizing they had exposed a high-level corruption ring. Agent Carter revealed that the K-9 program, previously marked for shutdown, would now be reinstated with funding and a new facility. Nicole would lead the unit, and Jack was offered a contractor role with operational freedom. He agreed, with conditions. Their first mission came sooner than expected. Intelligence revealed another facility deep in cartel territory, holding at least 16 children. Though not officially sanctioned, Westfield handed them the intel. With 3 newly assigned handler dog teams and their home base now serving as a temporary HQ, Jack and Nicole began planning the rescue. During the mission, they discovered the children were being prepared for relocation, possibly a reaction to Medina's arrest. The team accelerated extraction, working under cover of night. Valor led the children out, calming them as they moved through darkness. All 16 were rescued safely. One girl revealed her brother had been taken elsewhere. There were more kids still out there. Back in Arizona, the investigation expanded. Congressman Whitfield cooperated with authorities, exposing a widespread corruption network. Nicole and Jack were formally integrated into a new joint task force. Nicole was given command of the Second Chance facility, Jack a consulting role. Together with Valor and their team, they trained new handlers and prepared for future operations. Soon, intel revealed a new trafficking site in Chihuahua with 18 more children. Despite the political risk, they planned the raid. The operation was flawless. Guards neutralized, children rescued without alerting the cartel. As the helicopters flew back across the border, Nicole whispered, 18 children safe, no casualties. Jack replied, until the next time. 6 months later, the Second Chance facility was fully operational. Their missions had saved dozens of lives and exposed hidden networks. As a new case unfolded, they prepared once more, driven not by orders but by the purpose they had found when a determined German shepherd showed up at Jack's door.